We are very excited to have Alex Shoup with us today. He is the Director of Social Marketing at Growth Weaver, which is a Denver-based digital marketing company. So he has a lot of expertise on how to get the word out online, but then also he'll be talking about some more of the traditional forms of marketing. So he has a degree from the University of Missouri School of Journalism, and he's worked in Boulder and Boston at different agencies, and was the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at one of those startups. So we're very excited to have him here, so I'll let him just step right in.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Again, my name is Alex. I work right now at an uptown Denver-based digital marketing agency. So we do a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. There's a lot of content in here today, so if at any time you have any questions, feel free to stop me, slow me down, raise your hand, just shout it out, sign with me. As you mentioned, I am currently Director of Social Marketing, so a lot of the stuff we're going over today is what I do on a day-to-day basis. After school in Missouri, I went to Boston to work for a company out there and decided that I wanted to come back to Colorado. I had spent some time out here in an internship, so I came back and I ended up at Growth Weaver. And we do a lot of work with a lot of different sorts of companies. So our main focus is local companies. We work with a lot of Denver-based restaurants and local brick and mortar businesses and things like that. We also we do some nonprofit work as well. But our kind of crux and core is social advertising, content marketing, email marketing, SEO and SEM, and web design. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. So I will explain those things later. And again, as I mentioned, we work with a lot of nonprofits, local businesses. Our main focus is working with kind of locally Colorado-based businesses. So Susan G. Komen, Colorado is a nonprofit we work with pretty closely. Swim Strong is another nonprofit we work with. They're actually based out in New York. Restore the Headwaters is a brand new one that you guys will probably hopefully be hearing about soon. It's we're doing a PR effort basically to help purify Colorado's headwaters and streams. So a couple of other local businesses and organizations that we work with, just to give you an idea of who we are and what we do. So overall, what are we going to talk about today? Two main categories, traditional media and digital media. Traditional media is what you traditionally think of when you talk about advertising. So TV, radio, print, everything that goes along with that. And then digital media, of course, is websites, social media, newsletters, email marketing, things like that. And we're going to talk about each one of those things, what it means, how to most effectively do it, a little bit about kind of the buying and the thought process behind it, and how to tie it all together. So the first thing is broadcast media. I know that a lot of organizations here probably either don't have the budget or just are not spending money on radio or TV. That's okay. I still want to tell you a little bit about the process and how it works. It's not necessarily something that I'd recommend just diving into for an organization for the first time if you're just starting to spend money on marketing, but nonetheless, let's go into it. So if you want to buy a radio spot or create an ad for TV, the first thing you want to do is determine your objective. So what do you want to accomplish? Do you want donations? Do you want to drive attendance to an event? Do you want website visits? It's very important to know what you want to accomplish. You don't want to spend up to $100,000 on a TV spot just to not accomplish anything. So once you know what you want to do, you have to find somebody to work with, and that's a producer, a production company, an advertising agency, something like that. You can find, especially in Denver, this is a pretty tech-heavy area. You can find people for $1,000. You can find lower than that from production to post-production of creating a spot for you. But the key is take a look at their previous work, take a look at the things they've done, take a look at their reel. That's the kind of key word that you want to look for with them is their previous work. Have they worked with people that have similar messages to yours, and are you confident that they can get the job done? And this is both radio or TV. It's pretty similar in the process from pre-production to post-production. And the way that works, so the first thing is pre-production. So you go to your director, you talk to them, you say, I want to get people to my event for my nonprofit. So you come up with a script, you write the script. Then the director and the producer and those people go out and they hire actors, they get costumes and props and all those things, and that's pre-production. So while you are preparing to record or film or something like that, you're doing pre-production. The next step is just production. This is when you're filming your commercial, you're filming your spot, you're bringing in the actors and actually doing it. Typically it's a short day or a few days. And then you're into post-production. This is editing, and then this is the time where you as the client, this is kind of your most important role. So this is your opportunity to go to the director or go to the producer and say, hey, my message or my mission statement isn't in here enough. I want to make sure that people know to donate, and here's why, or to go to my event. So this is your kind of time to talk with the producer and the editors to make sure that your message is in there. So once you have a commercial, you have to get it up somewhere. I want to talk a little bit about the buying process, just so you understand how it works. Now, typically when you're doing a media buy that's not handled by you, it'd be handled by whoever's producing that commercial for you. And it would be a paid media buyer. That's the actual title of the person that would be doing it. There's a couple of ways broadcast media are priced. So by point or by kind of how many people are you going to reach, and that's how you're paying for it. So a lot of people here are probably familiar with Nielsen ratings. That's now they track it digitally, but a few years ago they used to send out a little journal. You would write down what you're watching on TV, or you'd write down what you're listening to on the radio. I think they'd pay you or something. But based off of the journals they get back from people, they know who's watching what and how many people are watching what. So a higher rated show would get more points, and that's going to cost more to advertise on. Now, similarly, they also use those journals to forecast how many people are going to watch. For instance, let's talk about the Super Bowl. So let's say that 3 years ago, 1 million people watched the Super Bowl. 2 million years ago, 1.1 million people watched the Super Bowl, and then 1 year ago, 1.2 million people watched the Super Bowl. So every year it's increasing by 100,000 people. They can say this year, okay, if we're going to charge you by X amount of dollars per 1,000 people watching it, we can charge you this amount of money. So you're either buying based off of points, so how highly it's rated, or based off of forecasted amounts of impressions or people listening to the ad. Something also to keep in mind is how many times people are listening or seeing your ad. I think that traditionally in broadcast media, 3 is kind of the magic number. You want people to listen to your ad 3 times. A lot of times kind of these broadcast buys will be a little bit out of the budget of nonprofits, so we suggest working with kind of local radio station groups that may be able to donate time with you. There's also a lot of local radio station groups that record ads that can kind of donate those resources as well. So definitely reach out to local radio station groups, nonprofit groups like that to see if they'd be willing to cooperate as far as buying time or helping you with the production. So how do we target broadcast media? It's pretty straightforward. It's as far as media targeting, it's one of the most broad targeting categories. The way it works is, so for instance, let's say we're buying an ad on TV. If you buy it on Fox, you're going to predominantly hit conservative viewers. MSNBC, you're going to hit liberals. On Nickelodeon, for instance, a lot of children and their parents are going to be watching your advertisements. And if you put an ad on Christian radio, it's going to be predominantly Christians that are listening to that radio. You can also do it by channel or network category. So for instance, HSN is a home shopping network. So people are probably not working during the day. They have a little bit of disposable income, or they're bored at home. So you can target kind of based off of the demographic of the people that are watching. HGTV is home and garden television. So homeowners, people that are DIY. This is just to give you an example of how to choose where you want to put your stuff. And time of day is obviously very important too. A very important thing is to think about how are your results tracked. So at the end of the day, you want these people to do something. Let's say that you want them to come to your event. So maybe on your event registration, you put something that says, how'd you hear about us? And put a little check mark for the TV or radio ad or whatever you're doing. One of the common themes throughout today's talk is going to be make sure that you're tracking what you're doing. You can put thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into stuff, and even if it is working, it's very important to know why it's working and where it's coming from so you can continue to build on those results. Then a couple of notes down here. It's expensive, so for a lot of you guys, you're not going to have the budget to be running broadcasts. This is typically something that's, again, it's a much more broad targeting group, so it's not as efficient as far as targeting as something like social media may be. Even though the stuff is again, just talking about that broad targeting. Print media is another huge category of media. So this is everything from press releases, newspaper, magazine, flyers, handouts, direct mail. The goal of these is, each one of these has a different sort of purpose. So for instance, if you want to hit a local audience, I would recommend using a newspaper to create an ad. If you want to hit, for instance, Denver, residents in Denver that are homeowners ages like 45 and up, newspaper would be a really, really awesome type of media. Magazines are typically targeted towards more interest or demographic based people. So for instance, there's a lot of lifestyle magazines. If you are a nonprofit that is, for instance, targeted at mothers or homeowners or something like that, you can get one of those interest-based magazines and buy an ad in there. We're going to talk about that ad buying process a little bit. Flyers and handouts. This is more on site. If your organization is appearing at an event, or if you have just information to, to distribute when people come into your office, this is what you would create for that. This is not something that you mail out or that you're spending money on promoting to people. This is stuff that you have for when somebody says, hey, I want more information about you. And in direct mail, this is actually a relatively outdated form of advertising. We're going to talk about why. I mean, really, it's because it's too broadly targeted and it's relatively expensive. So $2 per person is a lot of money to spend to not even guarantee they're going to read your postcard, whatever you're saying. So on the right here, we have two little images. You can't really see them too much, but on the top, this is a spec sheet. And when you are buying a print ad, this is what it looks like. So the advertiser would send you this so you know the specs, the size that it's supposed to be. And then down here is it's a rate card basically. And I found this on Google Images. I Googled, I think, newspaper ad pricing or something like that. But this is a pretty standard for what you get from a newspaper or publication as far as when you're submitting an ad. So how it works is you choose your target. So how do you want to target them? Do you want to hit people in Denver? Maybe you choose newspaper. If you want to hit mothers in Denver, maybe you hit maybe you place an ad in a magazine that's targeted at mothers in Denver. So basically you choose your target and choose your segment, and then you choose your objective. Again, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Once you do that, you figure out which ad you want. So sometimes you need a 2-page spread. If you're talking about a huge event or a huge festival you have coming up, sometimes you just want a little bit of a smaller ad. We're going to talk about kind of creating that messaging later. Something to think about here is who's going to create that ad for you. So if you have somebody, your nonprofit, that is a graphic designer, that's great. You can work with them. I would always suggest anytime you're putting something out and you're paying to show it to more people, pay somebody to produce that to you. Your job isn't a graphic designer. Your job isn't a video editor. You shouldn't be doing this stuff. There's a lot of people that in the long run will save you a lot of money if you spend a little bit of money on their skills. So once you work with them, you give them the specs, you give them the messaging, you get it approved, or you get it created by them and you approve it, you send it to the publisher, and then the ad runs. And based off of the purchase, it can be a one-time run, it can run for a week or a month or a year, depending on the type of publication. And then again, the thing that I want to mention again is to track those results. So if you are not telling people, sign up on our website and say you heard about us in this newspaper, then you're not going to know whether or not that was effective. So especially if you're trying different types of paid media against one another, it's very important to make sure that you're tracking who is buying, where they're buying, and where they're coming from, or donating, or coming to your event, or whatever the ultimate goal is. There's a lot of different kind of aspects of digital media to go over. So we're going to, in some capacity, touch on today websites, landing pages, retargeting, SEM and SEO, search engine marketing and search engine optimization, social media, blogs, email newsletters, and content strategy. And if you don't know what any of that stuff means, that's all right, because we're going to go into it a little bit more in depth. So the first thing, I know that a lot of you guys have websites. I took a look at a few of them before I came out here today. A website is super important, especially in today's age, being a nonprofit. It's essentially your digital storefront. So if somebody wants to learn about you, if they want to donate to you, if they want to come to your event, the first place they're going to look is probably Google. They're going to type in your name and they're going to find your website and they're going to click to you. So your website is the first place where they find information about you. And what's so special about having a website is it is completely self-curated. So this is the only place on the internet where all the information that's on there is coming from you. So you have the opportunity to shape the tone and the voice and the adjectives and everything that somebody sees. You have the opportunity to make that the way you want it to be. So it's super important. On a Facebook page, on a Twitter page, on a blog, you can't always create the look and feel the way that you want it to look. But on the website, you can make everything the exact way you want it to be. Again, a key of the website is for it to be objective driving. So what does your organization need most? Do you need donations? Do you need people to come to your event? Do you need people to just tell other people about your organization on social media? These are all things that you can and should be encouraging through your website. One of the major struggles that our clients a lot of times have, and this is nonprofits, this is brick and mortar businesses, this is everybody with a website, is A lot of times you just can't get anyone there. You can have the best website in the world, and it can 100% of the people who go there can donate money to your cause. But if no one's going there, it's it's a waste of your time. So the first thing is content. Is your website engaging? Does it give people a reason to go there? If when people go to your website, obviously it should have your mission statement. It should talk about your organization and what you do. But if it doesn't give them more reason to be interested and to care and to read, then they're going to leave your website pretty quickly. The other thing is, do people know what they're supposed to do? When you go to a website, there should be a clear path. You should be able to go. So typically you go to the home page. Once you start there, do you want them to go and learn more about you? Do you want them to watch videos about your organization? Do you want them to go to your donation page? So you need to tell them with clear calls to action, donate here and here's why. Do you have a blog? So this is kind of more on that engaging sort of thing. So we're going to talk more about why blogs are important as far as bringing more people to your website. But once they are there, a blog tells the story about your website. And more than that, it kind of furthers that mission. So one of the problems that we have with one of the organizations that we work with is that there's a misinterpretation the money that goes to this organization doesn't go anywhere. So what we started doing in the blogs, we followed the story of where is this money going. So by blogging about here's how we are spending this money with this organization, we're furthering the mission and letting people know, first of all, we're kind of clearing up some misconceptions about the organization, but second of all, we have some really cool content that's fun and shareable and social and followable online. And is it updated frequently? So same thing with the blog. You need to tell that story. You need to tell it frequently. You need to give people a reason to come back, especially those core supporters. Those core supporters that come back frequently, those are going to be the people that donate to you and come to your events and let more people know about your organization. So it's important to keep those people coming back and give them their reason to do that. We will shortly discuss how to figure out where your internet traffic is coming from. But it's important to know who is driving your traffic. Is it social media? Is it a sign in front of your office? Where are those website visitors coming from? Other than why would someone come to your website? So let's talk about students you come in for instance. Obviously, you can go to their website if you wanted to donate to their organization. That's a pretty clear use of their website. But more than that, what else would be appropriate for them to host? So just to get people coming and interested in putting relevant lifestyle information on the website, things like breast cancer resources, maybe information and resources for families of people with cancer. The goal here is to put things on your website more than just your mission statement, to provide use, to get people to come back. Also, another reason to keep people engaged is the more activity on your website, the more Google and other search engines will like it. So the better entertained you can keep people, the more functional your website will get as far as Google sending people to it. And then again, does it provide use other than just info about your nonprofit? So providing resources and help for people along the lines of your nonprofits, along with its mission statement is very important. And where are you winning search? So if you search Google for, let's say that you're a nonprofit to help mothers in Denver. If you search help mothers in Denver, if you're not at the top of that list, you need to be. So we're going to talk about how to get to the top of that list. Search engine optimization and search engine marketing. I've been throwing those words out a lot today. Once you understand what they mean and kind of how to do it, it's very, very simple. So search engine optimization is making your website more findable by Google and by Bing and by Yahoo, but really by Google is all we care about. There's a couple of types of SEO. There's on-page and off-page. On-page is basically updating the code on your website, updating the words, making sure that photos are categorized correctly so that Google and other search engines can kind of figure out your website and send more people to them. So Google knows what the relevant content is on there, so when people are searching, it knows to show people this link. Off-page SEO is updating websites, things like Yelp, Facebook, Twitter, directory websites, just to make sure that all the other information about your website and about your nonprofit online is accurate. The more accurate you can get all those other websites, the more Google will send people to your website. So it's really important to have consistent information about your website across the board on as many websites as you can control. Another thing is having the relevant content with the right keywords. So what I mean by that is if your organization, I'm going to talk about Suji Komen again, if your organization is about breast cancer and breast cancer awareness, you need to talk about that a lot. lot. So blogging is one really, really good way. We suggest blogs that are at least 350 words, and what that does is that helps with your SEO. So it helps Google send more people to your website. And you need to talk about things that people that are interested in your nonprofit care about. So things that are kind of in the category of what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. Links to other sources are critical. So if you can get another blog to talk about you, you can team up with another nonprofit and share links to each other's websites. Those are called backlinks, and those basically it's kind of showing that you have clout online. And your website must be completely responsive, and this is a relatively new thing. So I think it was in May, it may have been a little bit more recently, that Google changed their algorithm. And what it means is that anyone that does not have a mobile optimized website, you're now being penalized by Google. So you're now much less likely to come up on search. So these days, it's very important to have an up-to-date website with up-to-date code so that Google will show your website to more people. Another reason it needs to be responsive, I mean, it's not just to appear to Google, but if somebody's visiting your website from their tablet or their phone, you want them to be able to read it. SEM, search engine marketing. This is exactly what it seems like, paying Google to show your site more. So if you want to show up more under particular keywords, you tell Google, these are the keywords that I want to come up under, here's how much I'm willing to pay. And the way those prices work is it's based off of bids. So if other nonprofits in your area are also bidding on the same keywords, they're going to be more expensive. So you want to get as particular with your keywords as possible. You don't want to, for instance, buy nonprofit Denver. That would be a very expensive keyword that wouldn't yield a lot of results for you. So you want to get very specific with what you want to be paying to send people to do to your website. The landing page is a place that we typically start with nonprofits and businesses alike. They don't have a website, but they want to get some results. So on the right, and we didn't make this, I Googled image landing page right here. So these are two different types of landing pages. This is a really, really long one on Susan G. Cummins' site. They want your name and your email address and all these things. But this is a contact us page. So if somebody wanted to contact Susan G. Cummins in Colorado, it makes sense that they would go to their website and fill out this whole form. It's okay that there's a lot of different things that they fill out, a lot of steps, because these are people that are looking to tell Susan G. Cummins in Colorado something. Now this, on the other hand, this is an advertisement. They want somebody to do something. So for this, they want you to do some sort of purchase. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But the key here to look at is there's only a few things that the user has to do. So first name, last name, email address, phone number, select the country, and download now. Every additional step in a landing page or in a website online, if you're getting someone to donate or sign up for an event, that's another reason for them to say no. So as little information as you can ask for is always better. So this is kind of the example of a page that I would set up for a client if they're, for instance, gathering an email list or they want people to come to their next event. So a little bit of information right here. Call to action, tell them, amazing opportunity, download your free brochure, tell them exactly what you want them to do, take that information from them, a little bit more information here, but that's really it. So there's no more scrolling on the page. The consumer knows exactly what they're supposed to do. And even though this is for a business, it's the same thing for a nonprofit. When you're trying to get somebody to fill out a landing page like this, you're trying to sell them on something. So make sure that it drives action. So download now, fill out your information. It needs to be short and informative. You want to make sure you have a call to action and that you're getting exactly what you want. And the key here is these are quick and inexpensive to create. So if you don't have a website, or even if you do have a website, there's a lot of tools online, even if you don't know how to write code, that can help you build one of these in 20 minutes, that can help you collect donations or get people to your event. This is a really, really cool tool that not a lot of businesses that we work with know about or are using. So let's say someone goes to your website, they go to your donation page, and they decide not to donate. Well, what we can do is we can target them throughout the internet as they browse with ads and send them back to your website. So we know that these people are interested in donating because they are on your donation page, but they just, for whatever reason, didn't. I mean, we all the time put stuff in our shopping carts, we just don't purchase, and then we go back later to do it. So the goal here is to kind of hit that low-hanging fruit. It's really, really simple to do. I know some of these words like insert a pixel on your site or landing page doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's really as simple as kind of copying and pasting a code. And if you have a web developer, they can very easily do this for you in 5 minutes. But basically what happens is you put this code in your site, and now everyone that visits is tracked. And you can hit them with ads when they're browsing the rest of the internet and bring them back to either that same page or a new page and say, hey, I noticed you didn't donate before. Here's the reason why you should donate now. So a really, really cool piece of technology. You can do it through Google, you can do it through Facebook, you can do it through a lot of different platforms, but retargeting is bringing people that did not convert on your website back. This is also an awesome tool, and this is free from Google. If you do not have this from your website, or for your website for your nonprofit, you should, when we get out of here today, go and access this. It's a free tool that allows you to see everything that's happening on your website. So from what websites are being accessed, to how much time people are spending, to even the flow. So we can see if they go from your homepage to your About Us to your donation page, we can see how much time people are going and spending in each one of those pages and the kind of flow of traffic. So not only does it show all that stuff, it shows where people are coming from, and you can use that information to track conversions. So if you have a donation page, you can see, are my donators coming from social media? Are they coming from another website? Are they coming from our homepage? And you can use that to, better price or better put your advertising dollars towards what's working.
Does that matter who is hosting your site, or is this just a Google?
I don't think it should matter who's hosting your site. You should be able to access it through whoever.
If you have a Google account, you can sign up for Google Analytics.
That sounds right.
So if you have a Gmail account, you can.
Yeah. And it's free, and it's a really awesome tool. Who is hosting you? Do you know?
Fat Cow.
Got it. I think that anybody will work with that. But a really awesome tool. This is the first thing you should do. I want to go in a little bit into the social platforms. This is kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people think of social media as just posting on Facebook or just, a profile photo or a funny photo of a cat. I want to talk a little bit about how to use this stuff to your advantage and, to drive actual business results. So Facebook, everyone knows about Facebook. As far as marketing is concerned, it's a B2C platform. It can be used to drive action, to drive brand awareness and social engagement. So to get people talking about you online and also to get them to do something. Twitter is a little bit less engagement based. It's a lot more kind of word based and about getting retweets, a lot less about getting likes and comments and things like that. But since you're creating a conversation and driving action. LinkedIn is more of a B2B platform. So the nonprofits that we work with sometimes use this if they want to team up with businesses for donations or to host their next event or something like that. Really great platform for connecting with other businesses or other business professionals. So if you're looking for your next employee for your nonprofit, LinkedIn is a great place to look. So this is really great for driving brand awareness, as well as kind of your position as an industry leader. So if you want to show people that you know what you're talking about in your nonprofit's industry or your nonprofit sector, this is a really great place to start putting out content to kind of show people that you guys know what you're talking about. Then Google Plus, again, boosts that SEO. So sends more people to your website without you paying for it. And it helps drive brick and mortar visits. So if you are a nonprofit that wants people to come by your office, you should set up an account with Google. Basically, I don't know if they still call it Google Places, but basically you hook it up to your geographic location, and it will help people find you when they're searching for you online. And it helps send people to your website. A couple of other social networks. So Instagram, this is a photo-based social network. Essentially, you upload square photos, people engage using hashtags and likes. This is more of social engagement. So we don't use this for brands to drive results. If you want to look cool on the internet, this is a really awesome platform. But if you want to put your intern or your resources towards something that's going to drive results in money or donations or event attendance, this isn't always the best place to start. Pinterest is very similar, except for it can end in some of those actions, so it can drive clicks to your websites. If you're not familiar with Pinterest, it's essentially it's a lifestyle and kind of DIY platform that teaches people how to do stuff and make stuff, typically targeted towards women ages kind of 24 to 35 is the main.
Or older.
And older.
It's addicting. That's the problem. Yes. Yes.
And you can pay to advertise in there, so it's a paid advertising platform as well. And then Reddit is kind of an outlier on this. The key here, so you can pay to advertise on Reddit, but Reddit is an organization. It's actually an online message board, and the key here is to be transparent. Be transparent and to add value. So if you need donations or if you need people to come to your event, it's something you can possibly do on Reddit, but it's very important to do it in kind of a non-salesy way and to try to add value and help that community and help build that community. I'm going to talk a little bit about content. So on this slide, there's two examples of content. One is kind of what I would call more of an engaging post, and the other is a salesy post. The one on the right, we just shared a photo from Humans in New York. It's a really popular social media account. And this one, so the caption here is, I'm trying to beat kids for the fifth time. First time was in 1997. The doctor told me that I only live for 6 months. I've had my armpit, my knee, my back, twice my groin. Life keeps throwing me curveballs. I keep hitting them. So kind of a feel-good post about fighting cancer. Certainly on brand with student development and what they want to put out, but it doesn't do anything for the business. It doesn't get them more donations, I mean, at least directly. So on the left, here's an example of a post that's supposed to do something. And this one is promoting savings for a race discount code for the upcoming Race for the Cure. So two examples of posts. So what sorts of content should you be posting? So engaging is an example on the one on the right. About 3 to 4 out of 5 of your posts should be engaging content. So these are things that have to do with your organization, but not directly asking for donations. These are fun, interesting, lifestyle-related posts that your fans can relate to. And then about 1 out of 5, maybe 2 out of 5 of those posts should be more objective driving. So please donate, please sign up, and here's why we need you to. And the reason, I mean, there's a few reasons why we want it to be a mix like that. The first reason is, if all of your posts are salesy posts, you're going to lose all of your fans. They're not following you to hear about why you need money. If they want to donate, they're going to donate to you. Then the other reason is, based off of responses like that, because people are more willing to like a photo like this than to like kind of more of an ad like this, Facebook takes that into account. So based off of the performance of your post on your page, Facebook will show your posts to more or less people. So about 5 years ago, if you were to make a post on Facebook, 100% of your organization's fans would see those posts. Now, if you make a post from your organization's page, probably about 1 to 3% of your fans see those posts. So the reason is because it's a pay-to-play model now. There's a lot of organizations making a lot of money off of this free advertising on Facebook. So you have to pay to show it to more people. So typically, we promote all of our posts. And the thought behind it is, if it's good content, you should be showing it to more people and be paid to show it to more people. There are some benefits to advertising on social media. There's also some kind of negative side effects or kind of some negative pieces of advertising on social media. And I want to talk about them a little bit. So the first one is social media has a really, really cool opportunity to be socially influential and engaging. So you see a billboard on the street, you like it, can't do anything about it. You see a really cool TV ad, can't do anything about it. You see a cool radio ad, maybe you talk to a friend about it. With social media, if you see a cool ad, if you see an awesome post, you can share it with your friends, you can comment, you can like. Something that's really awesome about social media is paid advertising has the opportunity to turn into free bio advertising. So if you do really good work, you have a very compelling message, and pay a little bit of money to show it to your Facebook fans, a lot more people can end up seeing it if it's a good message with compelling support. It can also be very expensive. So let's take a look at this graph right here. And this is a little bit outdated. I think it's from 2 or 3 years ago. So the cost of both Facebook and LinkedIn have risen slightly, but only slightly. And this graph is still very, very, very much true. And I imagine on the left side, these numbers have gone up as well. So if you're advertising in a newspaper, it's going to cost about $35 to reach 1,000 people. And these are not very targeted people. These are people in probably in your city. With a magazine, it costs about $20 to hit 1,000 people. Maybe they're categorized by interest or lifestyle. Radio is about $7 to reach 1,000 people, and a lot of times these are just categorized by music interests, so not a very categorized or segmented audience. But just look all the way over on the right. So it costs about $1, maybe $2 to reach 1,000 people on Facebook and LinkedIn. What's really, really cool about this is the audience targeting. So on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to target people by who they are and what they do, and we're going to talk much, much more in depth about that shortly. The other piece about this is measurability. So on a radio ad, you know about how many people may have listened to it. Same thing with a TV ad. The billboard, for instance, everybody that drove by it on I-25 saw it. With social media, you know the exact numbers of how many people saw the post, interacted with it, shared it, clicked the link. etc. So it's a very, very, very measurable type of advertising. Now, measuring ROI, on the other hand, can be difficult. So you can get people to your website, but if you don't know, how people are converting or the sources of conversion on your website, it can be hard to track that ROI. Social media is really great because you can get people to start a conversation about your brand, but if that conversation is negative, it can be really, really messy sometimes. So one of the disadvantages of social media can be if one of those messy situations comes up, people have the opportunity to give you positive or negative feedback. So similarly to how people use social media to help expand their cause, people also use social media to kind of talk about causes and not do anything about them sometimes. So sometimes it's easy to get people motivated on social media and talking about your brand, but actually converting those people into donators or to somebody that attends your event can be difficult. And then finally, organic versus viral, and I mentioned that. So social media is pay to play now. You cannot do things for free anymore. So that is now seen as a disadvantage, but I think that's just kind of the reality of the platform as it continues to grow.
What's ROI?
Return on investment. So these are screenshots from Facebook's advertising platform, just to give you an idea. This is one screenshot. This is one screenshot. This is one little screenshot that actually comes down from this more demographics thing. Using social media advertising, you have the power to do all sorts of things. So obviously you can send people to your website. You can also make your posts more popular, so if you want more engagement on your posts. You can also do things like raise attendance of your events if you want more people to know about your upcoming event. They have specific ads that their goals are to do just that. So a lot of really, really awesome different types of ads. Now in the middle here, I want to talk about the targeting. This is pretty much all of the targeting options you have on Facebook. In the next slide, we're going to talk about LinkedIn. But this gives us a really, really, really cool piece of information. So the first thing I do when I talk to a client is I ask them, who is your ideal customer? Who's the person you're trying to reach? And I mean, you can get as specific as saying, I want women in Denver ages 25 to 30 who have children or a child, ages 0 to 4 and are interested in cheeseburgers. I mean, we can get that specific on social media. So I want to talk a little bit about how to target the different types of targeting you can use. So location, you can choose people by not only their country, but by their state, their city, their zip code, things like that. You can also do, for instance, Denver plus 50. For age, you can target, I think it's anywhere from 13 to 65 plus. And then gender, you can hit men, women, or all. Language is a relatively newly introduced thing, and they've also introduced, along with that, some different ethnicities you can target. So you can target people based off of if they're African American or if they're Hispanic. You can specifically target them on Facebook based off of that. Additionally, you can target people if they're in a relationship, if they're single, if they're married, if they're engaged. You can specifically call somebody out if they just got engaged. So a lot of really cool pieces of information. Education, for instance, if they're in school, if they're going to school. Work and financial are very interesting. So a lot of people out there probably want to get donations, and a lot of your donors probably have to have extra cash. So if you wanted to target people, for instance, that make more than $200,000 a year, you can use that financial category. And what's really cool about this is no one has to give that information to Facebook. So all of you are in a category, if you have a Facebook page, all of you are in a category right now on Facebook. Facebook has you down for all this stuff. And you did not give them that information. So Facebook targets with all sorts of third-party data companies that mine this information and somehow tie it to your Facebook profile. So we can target you by how old your children are, if you just bought a home, some more interesting things too. So there's this tab right here, charitable donations. So you guys can target people on Facebook that Facebook knows to have donated to a charity in the last 6 months. More than that, so let's say that you are one of the charities we're working with right now, or nonprofits we're working with right now, is called Restore the Headwaters. And we're working with them on kind of purifying the waters in Colorado. So we're able to, for them, target people in Colorado that have donated to outdoor and wilderness causes. So those are people that we know are definitely going to want to donate to this. So some really, really interesting stuff. So if you have a targeted message and a group of people you want to hit, definitely try Facebook advertising. You can, based off any sort of demographic or interest or behavior, you can find something to help fit that goal of the customer. So really, really interesting stuff.
And can you
How do they charge?
Facebook, so it's bidding, and so typically it's about $1 per 1,000 impressions, but the way it works, I mean, it's kind of like the stock market. If more people today want to target charity donators in Denver, that's going to cost more than it did yesterday. So based off of how many people are trying to show your target group ads, your ads may be more or less expensive. Now, you can pay based on amounts of impressions, you can pay based off of actions, so you don't necessarily just have to pay I want to show it to 10,000 people. You can say, I want 20 people to click on my ad and stop it running then. So there's a lot of ways to kind of purchase the ads, but the bidding happens based off of just how expensive is it to target those people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if you were building like an advertising budget, let's say it's a pie chart, and part of it obviously would be social media.
Yeah.
What would you say? It would be like 20% of your budget for advertising that you
Well,
would
what's your
say?
goal?
Well, let's say like a nonprofit, we're trying to recruit out-of-school youth.
Well, I mean, it's hard to answer that question because it depends on what's most effective.
Okay.
So, I mean, I do social media all day. The first place I put your money is social media, definitely. Part of the reason is just, I mean, you guys would probably be doing a lot of your work on your own, and social media is the easiest thing for you to just do and create that message and put it out in a quick, I mean, you can have it, we could sit down right now and create an ad and have it live in 5 minutes if we wanted to. So social media is a really good place to kind of try out some new messaging. But as far as how much of your budget should go towards social media, all of your budget should go towards whatever drives the best results for you.
Well, there's always limited money, so, and they always say, well, how much is it gonna be? And so I don't know, I was thinking, is it kind of like an accelerator, is that you could start and then just keep adding more, just keep adding, kind of like keywords,
It's totally like that. I mean,
Okay.
so, with a radio ad or commercial, you have to make the thing, costs a ton of money. I mean, there's a lot of investment at the beginning. With this, I mean, you can literally create an ad and spend $1. You have to spend a minimum of $1 a day. So you can start with $1 and track from there. I mean, I'd start with $20 and give it a try and see what goes. Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Now, all these choices come, like when it's like boost this post and you pay to boost it, is this all available from there or somewhere else?
So when you're on Facebook and there's that boost button, a little bit less of this is available from there. But once you set that up, you can actually kind of go into the ads and edit the targeting more if you want to. But I never press that boost button because it gives you less options than going. It's facebook.com/ads/manage just to get to this stuff. But if you just search like Facebook ads, there's also some much more specific targeting. So there's something called the Facebook Power Editor, and it allows you to, it's not as relevant for instance, nonprofits, but for things like restaurants, you can target your ads based off of time of day. So if you only wanted to show your ad from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., if you have a happy hour coming up or something like that, you can do that. There's some really, really cool capabilities with ads. And this isn't even really everything you can do with Facebook ads. This is just some really cool information that's included on there. So LinkedIn advertising is very similar, but this is based off of professional categories. So who the people are, where they work. So for instance, let's say you're based in Seattle and you want to get donations from people that work at Microsoft because they make a lot of money. You can literally target people in Seattle that work at Microsoft. You can include or exclude companies, industries, titles, things like that. So if you're looking to network for your organization, it's a really, really great way to do it. And there's two types of LinkedIn ads. There's LinkedIn advertisements and there's direct sponsored content. LinkedIn ads is essentially like a small headline, a few words, a photo, and then a little bit of text. Versus direct sponsored content is basically like a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post. It is a LinkedIn post, but you're paying for LinkedIn to show it to more people. So it's more of a social, engaging post versus the LinkedIn ad is a very stagnant, kind of a web-click ad like you'd see in Google. And again, this is more for B2B connecting.
Excuse me, can you say what B2B and B2C means?
Yeah, B2B is business to business. So, for instance, if you wanted to network with people for your organization to find CEOs, they could mentor youth or something like that, I'd use LinkedIn. If you wanted to connect with just some person in Denver that could donate to your organization and you're targeting them based off of who they are as a person, not as a business professional, I would use Facebook. That makes sense? A little bit.
B2C, C means customer?
B2C, yeah, business to customer. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. So blogs, I mentioned they're important because they boost your SEO and they show your mission statement and work. I just wanted to mention again how important they are. So these help boost your social media activity because they're shareable social content. Additionally, by posting those links other places, you're getting that back linking to your website, which is really important to boost traffic and boost your search engine optimization. So what I would suggest is I would use your blog. I would blog once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month if you can't do once a week, and just talk about what's the newest, most exciting thing happening in your organization. I mean, it can be we just hired an intern. It can be we have an event coming up. What's important is to show that personal side of your brand and of your nonprofits. This is a place to be a little bit more casual than, here's our mission statement and donate now. That said, you can still drive donations and event attendance using blogs. Email newsletters are really, really similar to blogs. The key to email newsletters, they have a really high ROI, return on investment. And what's pretty cool about blog or the email newsletter is you write a short, compelling message, just a few paragraphs. So for instance, this one right here, with a few paragraphs, few pieces of information, and again, I just Google imaged nonprofit email campaign or something. This is what came up. And this is a good example. A few short headlines, a few short paragraphs, and some links. I'd probably put a donate link and come to our event here and learn more here. But a really good example of just a good-looking, simple email newsletter. It can be very, very similar to your blog. In fact, you can use the same content as your blog. What's key here is that you are sending it out via email and driving some sort of objectives. You want to send people to your website or to your donation page or something like that at the end of each blog.
Do you think these kind of just go out to your listserv, or do you use like constant contact, or?
Yeah, you could use constant contact. I mean, we use constant contact for some clients. I would send them out to, it depends what your marketing goals are. So for a lot of smaller nonprofits, I would have just an overall, here's what's going on with our nonprofit blog. If you had a ton of resources, I'd say you can divide it up and hit your heavy donators with a specific type of email marketing campaign. But the key, if you don't have one of these, is just let people know what's going on with your nonprofit and give them a reason once a month to remember to donate, really. Send people back to your website once a month is the goal here.
Sorry, just a really quick question about blogs and newsletters. Do you have a preferred platform for what sort of jives well with your website and, in terms of tracking and making sure that you can stay on?
We use a lot of WordPress, if that's kind of what you're asking.
And so does WordPress have like a newsletter system?
No, what I would do for a newsletter is I would pick up something like Constant Contact or MailChimp or one of those platforms. And depending on the size of your email list, it can be pretty expensive to use on a monthly basis. And I imagine if you're just getting started, it'll be really inexpensive, if not free, probably at the beginning for you. But what I would recommend is I would write it as a blog, and then you kind of just copy it and paste it into the email marketing platform and then format it from there. But the email newsletter and the blog are two very, very similar types of content, just two different ways of sharing them. A couple of stats I wanted to mention for the email newsletter. So this is some pretty powerful stuff, actually. For every $1 spent on email marketing, the average return on investment is $44. So huge return on investment right there. 70% of people say they always open emails from their favorite companies, and this includes nonprofits too. They're going to see that message that comes from you, and paired with this next message, which is 91% of consumers check their email at least once per day on their smartphone. So not only are all of your fans going to see your message, but they're going to see it the day you send it out. So if you need help getting donations or driving event attendance, an email is a really, really great way to do that. And then the last piece is kind of a word of warning to do it professionally. If the email does not display correctly, 71% will delete it immediately. So, I'm sure the same way you see a crappy email and you get frustrated and delete it. So just a reminder to make sure that whatever you're putting out looks good. If you can't put something out that looks good, don't put it out because people aren't going to respond well to it. And I've kind of echoed a lot of these messages or this message throughout the presentation, but as you're coming up with the blog or the email marketing campaign or even just a message for your landing page, here's exactly how you want to do it. So the first thing is, you should always, as a nonprofit, be thinking about your mission statement. How do I further it? And what's that core message? And what does it mean for this particular message I'm putting out now? Additionally, what are the goals or objectives you want to accomplish? So do you want to drive attendance? Do you want to get people to come to your event? Do you want people to go to your website? How do you communicate that within your message? And then how can others help you get to where your final goal is? So, why do you want us to donate? What's the key important takeaway for, why you need us to donate, why you need us to come to your event? It's very important to think about those three things when you're putting out your message. But the important thing here is to always tell your supporters what you want them to do, because people aren't smart enough to figure it out without you telling them. So donate now because of this, come to our event Friday because of this reason. There's a few ways to manage your online presence. You can hire out. You trust these people with your brand. You need to make sure that you trust whoever is representing you. One of the downsides, it can cost more money. One of the upsides, it's going to be professional and results oriented. So if you're paying somebody to do marketing for you, they're going to come to you every month with, here's the results that we achieved and here's how we track them. If you do it yourself, one of the advantages is you have complete content control. So everything that goes out, you have control over. It can also be very inexpensive to manage yourself. The downsides is it's probably not a top priority of yours, and you're not a professional, so you may not know the best tips for doing everything correctly. So if you did want to hire out, there's basically two ways to do it. You can hire somebody to do it, or you can hire something to help you do it. So if you wanted to hire out, you can hire somebody to coach you. So something that we do with a lot of our businesses is we say, here's what your online presence looks like, here's what you can do better. You can also hire someone to help you with content. So if you want to manage the messaging, but say, can you write a blog for us once a month or something like that, that's one way you can do it. One aspect of hiring it out is hiring reputation. So we talked about off-site SEO earlier. If you want someone to manage your online presence off of your website, you can hire someone to do that. And you can also hire someone to manage that advertising, so your pay-per-click campaigns and things like that. And then there's a ton of digital tools. So this tool right here, this is actually what we use to manage all of our clients' social media marketing. It allows us to schedule posts, to see analytics, to do a lot of different things on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, all the big social networks. So I would definitely recommend getting some sort of platform like this that allows you to be more efficient with your marketing management, some sort of marketing automation tool that allow you to kind of plug and play, put in the information, and it'll work from there. There's also a lot of tools that will help you find content. So what should I be posting? They'll suggest content and things like that. So a lot of tools that can help you with automation or analytics or just management of your pages. Again, this is a screenshot of the platform we use. So I recommend that our clients post anywhere between 3 times and 7 times a week. You can post more than once a day if you have interesting, relevant information that's still getting engagement. If people aren't liking your post still, you probably don't want to continue to see it. So again, put things online that are relevant, that have to do with the lifestyle of your nonprofit, and that kind of speak the language of people that support your brand. And again, you want to be driving action. So as important as it is to kind of be friends with your fans online, you also want to get them to donate and to come to your events and things like that. One important thing here is, what if people are upset online? So a key problem that we encounter a lot of times is if somebody, for whatever reason, doesn't support your brand, they can be very, very vocal. And on most social networks, there's ways of hiding those people. But what we recommend is the first thing you always want to do is take somebody offline. So if somebody's vocally upset about your brand, what I would say is, and I would reply to them publicly and say, hey, I'm really sorry about this concern. We'd love to talk to you about it in person. Can you give us a call at phone number or email us here? The goal is to get those complainers offline. And sometimes people will just keep complaining and you can delete their comments or block them from your pages personally. But the reason that it's important to kind of take action in the way that I mentioned before is kind of show that you care about how people think. So even if somebody's frankly upset about something that your brand did, if you handle it appropriately, that's a really awesome kind of case study for your brand and how it works. So think about that when you're dealing with people online. Just a couple more slides here. So where do I start? If you don't have one, you need a website. You need a website with Google Analytics. You need to know where people are coming from and why they're converting. A landing page is a really, really great way to quickly get people to do stuff. So regardless of whether you have a website or not, a landing page for your next event or for your, for a donation page could be a really, really great tool for you. You need social media pages, but only focus on the ones that you can do well. So if Instagram isn't appropriate for your brand, then don't get an Instagram. If you don't have time to do Facebook, maybe wait to set up a Facebook page until you have more time or resources. And then again, newsletter and blog, they're gonna help drive people to your website, they're gonna help drive those actions, and they're gonna help drive support on you, of your organization on your website. Sure.
In terms of the blog, is there a difference in efficacy if it's a blog that's kind of like hosted on your website versus a blog that's on a separate page? Like having a WordPress blog versus a blog page on your website?
I would put the blog page on your website if you could. And there's WordPress has like a plugin, I'm sure that you can kind of link it onto your website. And a lot of websites these days are WordPress based, so you don't have to probably kind of linking it in. But yes, the newsletter and blog are really, really important for driving those actions and getting people back to the site. Once you've done that, so what are the next steps? You need to track your conversions. Where are your donators coming from? Where are the people that are coming to your events coming from? And continue to improve your website to increase those conversions. So make sure that you continue to build on that page and get people to continue to convert better and better. Once you have a website that's optimized and people are converting very quickly, when I say convert, I mean they're donating when they go to the page, you want to start spending money and spending your time to get more people to your website. So use SEM and SEO to get more people there. And from there on out, basically what you're doing is experimentation and trial and error and figuring it all out. So continue to put more money towards getting people to you and to your organization and see what works and see what doesn't work. If it's not working, tweak it or cut it, and if it is working, put more money towards it. The goal here is there's a ton of different ways to get the word out about your organization, so make sure that you're trying them and seeing what works the best for you. And then so the last kind of piece here is how to develop this budget. The key is to start small. So if you only have $20 a month, start with $20 a month. Pick a few channels or pick a few message variations. So maybe try the same message on Facebook, Twitter, and radio and see which one gets you the most. Or try a couple of different messages on Facebook and see which message is getting the most feedback. Just remember to measure and report those monthly. That's what we do with our clients. That way you continue to grow and build upon that strategy. And I'd recommend if you're not spending anything, try $200 a month. It's not enough to break the bank, but it's enough to get thousands and thousands of people to see what you're doing online. And if you wanted someone to manage your digital marketing in some aspect, and you've never done it before, I'd start with maybe $500 to $1,000 a month. This is for them to create content for you. It wouldn't be managing your entire presence, but it would kind of get you used to working with a small marketing organization. So key takeaways: make sure you have a website and landing page. Make sure that you have other aspects of digital presence because they're going to support your website. They're going to support all the efforts that you're going to do, and they're going to end up driving all the traffic to your website. Make sure that people know what to do. Make sure you drive action and give them a compelling call to action so they know what they're supposed to do. Continue to test and utilize the most effective channels, and then again, measure, tweak, improve, fix. Make sure that you're always looking at what's working and what's not working. All of you guys have small budgets, you're nonprofits, so you need to make sure that you're using that money as effectively as possible. Cool. Any questions?
Do you have, is that internet connected, your computer there?
I don't know. Is it internet connected?
I was just wondering if you could look at a couple of our websites and just look at it and say, oh,
Good time.
We're running a little short on time, so how about at the end if we have some time, we can do that. We thought about adding that in, but.
well, I don't know, do we have a landing page? I don't even know what, we don't even know if we have some of that stuff,
Yeah.
And that's all I was looking at, I was gonna say, oh, you don't even have a landing page. Okay.
Sorry, is a landing page just sort of like a placeholder homepage, or is a landing page actually part of the website?
It can be part of a website, but it's typically like a single standalone page. So it doesn't have to be part of the website.
Sorry.
The goal is that it's just one quick page that there's not a lot for them to do other.
Page or no?
Homepage, I typically wouldn't recommend being a landing page, because the homepage, you want to link to everything else on your website. This is more of a page that you'd send, so a homepage is kind of more of a broad, this is who we are page. A landing page is, I want you to donate this or sign up or whatever for this specific reason. And so you won't typically see the home and about and contact us and all those other links because it's distracting from.
So from the landing page, would there be a link to your website also, or?
There can be, yeah, but typically, I just see if I have the simpler, the better. The less they can do, the more likely they're gonna do what you want them to.
How would they get to that landing page?
You have some sort of link, so it can be a link to your website, it can be a link to your social page, it's some sort of advertising or promotion in some capacity. Send it to your website. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Please give another round of applause to Alex.
I've got to run, sorry. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Do you have business cards for the company?
I'll have her sit on my couch.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Perfect. Is this your contact?
No.
All right, if Alan and Barbara want to go ahead and come up, should be right back. Okay, Alan, come on up. I'm gonna pull up a chair here. Vicky, can you have glass of water?
Water.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. You think 9 minutes? For you. No, yeah. Like our staff photo this morning. You can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting, we've actually gotten the idea around quite a bit for kind of an individual, like having projects come in and kind of do a one-on-one, like let's go through your website and go through a list of best practices and kind of see what works and what doesn't work, kind of like what we're saying. Would that be of interest to people, or do you all pretty much have your websites good to go?
I would.
Okay. Okay, good. We'll keep thinking about fleshing that idea out then. No, that's fine. Don't worry. All right, well, I want to introduce Barbara and Alan here. I'm going to find my bio sheet. They have graciously agreed to serve on our panel today, and I know they're going to have really great information too, because both of them have a lot of experience on this topic. So, Barbara Rayner is the Executive Director of Boomers Leading Change in Health, a groundbreaking grassroots effort dedicated to improving the health and access to healthcare of underserved individuals and families in Metro Denver by mobilizing adults 50 and over as volunteers. Since July 2010, Boomers Leading Change in Health has recruited, trained, and placed more than 350 baby boomers as volunteer patient navigators, community health workers, policy advocates, and AmeriCorps Encore members at more than 24 host sites located across Metro Denver. Prior to joining Boomers Leading Change in Health, Barbara served for 10 years as the Chief Marketing Officer for the Jewish Federation of Greater Houston and the Allied Jewish Federation of Colorado. Before that, she worked for nearly 20 years as a copywriter, broadcast producer, and marketing strategist for a diverse array of clients in San Antonio, Texas. She received her BS in advertising from the University of Texas at Austin. And Alan Gottlieb is a Colorado-based writer, editor, journalist, consultant, and nonprofit entrepreneur with 20 years of experience in education policy and education journalism. Currently, he's the owner of Write, Edit, Think, LLC, an independent communications consulting firm. He co-founded Chalkbeat, a growing and increasingly prominent national news nonprofit focused on pre-K through 12 education policy implementation, and practice. Alan founded Chalkbeat's precursor, Education News Colorado,
and served as its publisher from its founding in 2008 until the merger with New York-based Gotham Schools that created Chalkbeat in 2013. Under Alan's leadership, Chalkbeat grew into an organization with more than 20 employees and a budget topping $3 million. From 1988 to 1997, Alan was a reporter with the Denver Post, and his work focused primarily on urban social issues, including public housing, homelessness, and from 1995 through 97, Denver Public Schools. His coverage of DPS earned several regional journalism awards. From 1997 until June 2007, he served as Education Program Officer at the Piton Foundation in Denver. So now you know why we invited them here today. They both have a wealth of experience in marketing and communications, and so we're really excited that both of them agreed to serve on our panel today. I should say too that until recently, Chalkbeat was a project of CNDC and Boomers is a project of CNDC. All right, so let's get started here. So we sent them a list of questions ahead of time, and I'm just gonna kind of go through those and we'll just have a conversation, and feel free to jump in with questions as we go. So Alex talked about a lot of different ways to market an organization. What avenues have the two of you utilized to promote an organization? Alan, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, first of all, Chalkbeat, because it's a news organization, the website is its entire, I mean, that's sort of what it is. It's a news website. So the website is obviously a major thing that we use to promote the organization, because that's where all our content lives. So that's a big part of it. But outside of that, events that promote your organization by providing information that's relevant to the people who you're trying to reach, whether it be something like this. I mean, having a panel discussion on a topic relevant is a really good way to reach your audience. Social media, I completely agree with Alex, is vitally important, but it's also can be a detriment if you don't use it right. I think basically my advice would be to make sure you hire somebody in their 20s and just let them do it. Because if you're older than that, you may not just get how it's done right. And we certainly did that at Chalkbeat. And certainly just meeting with key influencers is a way of getting in, and spreading the word about yourself, and word of mouth is still an effective way to get word out about your organization.
So, I just have to say, coming from Boomers, leading change in health, not sure age matters when you're hiring someone to help you with social media. Sorry, Alan, since both of us, you may be prematurely gray, but I suspect that we're in the same age range.
I'm a baby.
We've pretty much done everything. Because I came from a marketing background, it was a high priority for us as I took the leadership of this organization. I helped launch it 5 years ago. So we've done TV and radio and print and public relations and community outreach and e-communications, and we have a blog and we have a website, we have an e-newsletter, signage that you can see from the street, and social media. We're active mostly on Facebook, somewhat on Twitter. We have our own YouTube channel, and which is somewhat populated, but not very well populated, and also a LinkedIn presence. But by far, the cheapest, I believe, most effective form of marketing you can do is word of mouth. It is cultivating your constituents and your stakeholders, making them your ambassadors, and having them go out in the community and spread the word. It's the cheapest thing you can do. And social media is great, but my caveat to that is it takes a lot of time. A lot of time.
Especially if you're older.
It takes less time than it takes out. But I will say, for nonprofits who probably are operating on a small budget with a small staff, and if you're like our nonprofit, which I was hired because I had project management experience, but also because I had marketing experience, because they didn't want two different people, and your time is divided, you just have to budget your time appropriately.
I do want to second what Barbara said about e-newsletters, because that was a big part of what Chalkbeat did too, and we actually had a lot of subscribers because we had a lot of content that people didn't necessarily always visit our website every day to see what was new, but if they got the newsletter, we used to do it weekly, and we actually changed it to daily, that had all of our stories, and then we had, I think our subscribers, when I left a month ago, were about 5,000 just in Colorado, and way more than that in New York. So newsletters done right are really effective too.
And you hear, like I can tell you that we do have a letter that's on the front of our e-newsletter. It comes out monthly, and that letter also populates our blog monthly. And I'm shocked because I have to be honest with you, I'm not a huge reader of e-newsletters. So it always shocks me, but I hear from people all the time who have read it and they take the time to respond. I'm always shocked by that, but it does work.
That's great. Insert newsletters. So you're saying like newsletter done right. What might be some like, I guess, examples of the things that you've seen in newsletters that are like done wrong, like things to stay away from?
I think one element that's really important is figuring out for who you're trying to reach the correct frequency. Because if you don't do it often enough, then they might not notice it, and if you do it too often, you annoy them. And so I think that's one thing, is like, when do you have good enough content in the right quantity to distribute it, and it should be on a regular rotation, I'd say, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, every 3 months, but that's important. I just think that it's also really important that if you've written in a lively and interesting way, and again, it depends on your audience. If you have a really niche audience that is all inside an industry and very specialized, then I think it's fine. And this is kind of my message about everything, by the way. It's fine to kind of write it for them, but in general, I would avoid jargon, acronyms, and all that kind of thing in your writing, unless you're trying to reach just the people who totally get that stuff. But if you're doing that, you're artificially limiting yourself, in my opinion. And I'm come from a journalist background where you try and write for a broad audience, and I just find I always find jargon and acronyms. If you're talking about FBI, CIA, that's one thing. But if you start just using acronyms because you think it shortens things, it's actually very off-putting to the average reader.
Can we take a step back, actually?
Sure.
I think we're talking about tools, and I think there's a step before you get to tools, and that is kind of strategy and messaging. So when I was looking over the questions and actually listening to Alex's presentation, I'm thinking to myself, there's stuff that comes actually before that. One of the things before that is you need to know your audience. That's the number one most important thing, I think, in terms of developing your marketing plan, is knowing your audience, knowing who you're talking to, and knowing what you want to get them to do. After that, you can figure out how to go about doing it, but you got to know who you're talking to, and in order to try to figure out what you can say to get them to do what you want them to do. That's the first thing I would say. And that's like the number one rule in terms of developing your strategy, which is a question that we'll get to in a minute. The other thing is, and that will lead you in terms of everything you do. If your audience is, young adults, then you're going to tailor your marketing in a way that's going to be different than I'm going to tailor the marketing for boomers leading change in health, because that's not my audience. My audience is adults 50 and over, and adults 50 and over, they read longer things. So I don't have to do a Twitter thing. I don't have just 140 characters. I have a longer limit with them. But if I'm trying to get something out maybe to my kids who are 25, I'm going to have a different message, a different way of doing it. So that would be my advice to you. Number one thing, know your audience.
Yeah, and I think I went to a communications workshop, just a brief one, a couple of months ago, and there was a guy there who was like, had been Arnie Duncan's press secretary when he was the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools, and head of the Department of Ed, and he's like this hard-bitten kind of Chicago, used to having really aggressive reporters in his face. And he just had like a really pithy way of talking about communications, which is the first thing, and this totally echoes what you just said, Barbara, is who is your audience? That's the first thing you have to identify. The next thing is, what's your message? The next thing is, what is the best medium or media for communicating that message to that audience? And the last thing is, who is the messenger you want delivering? So, I mean, to me, that's just like a really nice way of figuring out a communication strategy, kind of in that order.
Well, and the fifth one would be, and I don't know whether I put it as number 5 or I might insert it above, how do you want to do it, which is how much money do you have to spend? Because that will dictate what you can do. If you have literally $1,000 to spend, then you're really going to have to really coerce or cajole a lot of people to do things for you for free. Which if you can figure out how to do that, I'd like to know. Or you're going to have to rely on things like social media, e-newsletters, things your website, driving people to it that don't cost a lot of money.
And in these days of social media, I do think that if you don't have a lot of money, if social media done really in a targeted, intelligent way, can get you a long way without.
So we keep talking about budgeting, and I know this is gonna be different for every, organization based on size and what you're trying to do, but like, for like a small organization, not a huge budget, is there like a budget size that, like a range that you could kind of like, could maybe help, like a good target to start with?
In the olden days, they would say that maybe you'd spend 10% of your overall budget, of your business's budget on a marketing campaign. But I think it really depends. I don't think, like one of the things I wrote down here is marketing is not one size fits all. And when I was handed the marketing budget for Boomers Leading Change in Health, I looked at it and said, there is no way, this is not enough. And so I ended up actually being able to get grants for more money. I'm just more predisposed to marketing, and as much as word of mouth is very effective, when you're launching something new, it's, 5 people are talking about it. It's just not enough people, not enough mouths. So I think it kind of depends.
So can you tell us what the proportion of your budget that you spend on marketing?
We spend a lot. And this doesn't really take into account the amount of my time I spend on it, because I'm the marketing person, basically. But our budget's it's close to $900,000. And we spend close to 10%, I would say, overall. It includes everything, website, constant contact, all of it.
But Boomers has done, like you said in the beginning, you've spent money on a lot of different ways, and that's partly because of the audience that you're trying to reach. So it may look very different for other organizations. And Chalkbeat's different too, because like you said, your website is more marketing.
And so the newsletter isn't exactly marketing, it's another way of getting our information out. If you ask us what our marketing budget is, I think it's kind of zero, but it was also everything.
Yeah.
We're so different than most organizations that it's really hard to compare.
Can you just sort of delve in just quickly in terms of your budget, that 900,000, what's the breakdown? Like, are you guys, do you have an agency that's doing your social media? Are you guys doing that in-house? Where is your budget sort of being allocated? Is it pretty much, is the bulk of it in advertising?
So, so the bulk of let me take another step back. What we do is we recruit volunteers, we place them at host sites throughout the community. So our number one challenge is to recruit enough volunteers to meet the demand. And we've tried, the reason that we have such a laundry list is because we started at the cheapest end of the spectrum, and we're not successful in recruiting a sufficient number of people, a big enough pool, in our opinion. So last year we got money to run a TV campaign, and we ran 3 months of television on Channel 4. It was hugely successful. It tripled or quadrupled the traffic that we had on our website, and it probably tripled or nearly doubled the number of people that signed up to volunteer with us over the previous 2 years. And that was great. What we found though was that not as many of them who signed up to register actually pulled the trigger and became volunteers. So we're right now in the middle of a research project where we have some beginning results back, and what we've learned is that even though the pool got larger, not everybody in it wanted to swim. And so we're going to go and start another media campaign, actually August 1st, television. We have an event coming up, and it's going to also promote the event, which is why we're doing it. But that was interesting because it costs the most money, but you get the biggest audience, but you have the most waste. And so that's when you're talking with the media buyer. What I would say to you is, if I was spending money on media, you need to have a media consultant that can help you with that can help you strategize through that and tell you, if you think you need to be on television, they'll tell you how much you need to spend, and then you can go back to your board and say, this is what our consultant said we need to spend. How can we find that money? So we've had some real success, and then we've had some complete busts. Like we advertised on the radio, it was a complete bust. But we're trying something new in a few months again on radio. We're sponsoring something called No Copay Radio. But that's we're the only sponsor. It's listened to by adults 50 and over. That's their market. And we probably get 5 minutes of content on there every Saturday from noon to 12:30 in case no one has anything better to do.
I think
In the middle of August.
the other thing to think about is depending on what your organization is and does, there's nothing like free media. And that means that you have to have something going on that's newsworthy and you have to know how to pitch it to make it interesting to the media. But I think you probably get at least as much bang for the buck if you can get that. It's harder to get because you can't just buy it. You have to talk somebody into it. But it's a really effective way. I mean, at Chalkbeat, we partnered with TV stations and other organizations, and when 9 News or something ran a story that we did with them, or Rocky Mountain PBS or Colorado Public Radio, it would always increase the traffic significantly to those stories. So, but in the same way, promoting, getting your organization publicized, and you hope it's something you control rather than something bad that happens. That's newsworthy because that won't help. But it's worth pursuing that as well.
That, by the way, was the biggest success we ever had. On January 2nd, 2011, we've been open 6 months, and that was when baby boomers started turning 65, the leading edge. And the Post ran a story about how baby boomers were going to, we did not plant this headline, save the healthcare system, which was a little overreaching, but nevertheless, that was what the headline was. And from that one article, we probably had 300 inquiries of really serious people who wanted to volunteer. And we have continued to live off of it for the past 5 years. And people bring, now this is our target audience, okay? So they cut it out and they bring it. They bring the article in with them. I've been saving this until it was the right time. And so we're still getting volunteers from it. What I'll say is a PR firm helped us get that story in the paper. So it wasn't technically free, but the ROI, as Alex alluded to, was huge.
In the absence of having a PR firm, like, how else, is there any other way to get news sources to pay attention to?
This is what I've spent my whole life on, so I think about it a lot, and I'm just starting to do communications consulting, so I'm something on the other side, and what I'm telling people as I work with them is the most important, because I've spent my entire career on the other side, right? There's nothing worse than getting stupid press releases that have nothing of interest.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of organizations that think volume is everything. Trust me, volume is a big negative, and it's gonna hurt you, not help you. So what I keep telling people is like, keep your powder dry. If you have something, wait till you have something that's really interesting before you send out a press release. And then you can't just send out a press release because every reporter and editor in the world gets thousands of them and doesn't look at any of them. So you've got to actually develop relationships with people, and then you've got to reach out to those people and send. I mean, it's just like everything else. It's shoe leather. It's hard work, but that's the way to get publicized. But the basic tip is don't just send stuff out. Think about it from the other person's point of view, and they're always looking for stories. A little less these days because the Denver Post has about 3 pages of content anymore. But it's still
It's crazy.
So Barbara, you mentioned that one of the ways you measure success and return on investment is the number of volunteers that you get. Are there other ways that you would define success?
Well, for that campaign, I mean, the fact that it drove people to our website was important too. It didn't convert, I think, more people into being volunteers, but it did drive them to our website where they learn more about what we did. I think if you can control your message and get into the media and it becomes the message you want it to be, then that's always going to be good because you're just building exposure. Some of it is hard to measure. Like we don't have the resources to measure what our brand awareness is in the community. But I can tell you just anecdotally, if I'm out and someone says, what do you do? Well, I work with Boomers Leading Change in Health. Someone will say, oh, I saw you on television. Or, oh, I read a thing, or I saw your newsletter, or, so that sort of helps us too a little bit. But going back to this issue of, where we had 3 times as many people sign up, but not as many actually pull the trigger on it, that's the thing we're sort of wrestling with. So it was hugely successful until we're looking back on it a year later and we're seeing not as successful as we thought.
Have you been able to convert those individuals that didn't sign up as volunteers into donors or board members or other, and, you know, get them engaged in a different way?
Well, we put them on our list and we keep sending them information and we do keep calling them and those kinds of things. Not to harass them, but to, you know, remind them that we're here. And we invite them to stuff all the time. And hopefully someday when the time is right, because the one thing we know about our audience is timing is everything. So we're just trying to be patient with it.
Okay. And Ellen, what are ways that you have defined success for different campaigns that you've run or marketing strategies that you've used?
I mean, I think for us, it's always been, it's a little different in a lot of ways than other organizations, but basically, we're just looking to see if we can increase two things: traffic to our site, and then engagement, our readers' engagement with what we produce. So, and we try and measure that. We actually developed a pretty sophisticated, it's still under development actually, tool to track how our reporting, what kind of influence or impact it has through, you know, how much it gets picked up by other media, whether people talk about it, whether people link to it, whether it actually leads to things like legislation being introduced, or so we try and measure. That's how we measure, and we do have some success with that. You know, in journalism also, it's like if you win awards or prizes for the reporting you do is another way of measuring the impact. And you know, with Facebook and Twitter, it's, you know, you can certainly see instantly on Facebook, you know, how many people are sharing, and you know, that's the thing that has the exponential effect with Facebook. It's not just people liking your post or liking your site. It's when people start sharing, you know, and then it goes to all their friends, and then it can get exponential really fast. So going off subject of the question a little bit, one thing I would say about Facebook is to save money initially. What I would do, well, it's a little different. It depends on how you use Facebook. But instead of spending a lot of money on Facebook ads to initially, not terribly expensive, but the cheaper thing is to boost individual posts that you think are important. And that can have a huge impact. I mean, because suddenly it goes from, you know, 700 or 800 people being reached, maybe if you have a fair number of followers, to thousands of people being reached. And you can spend, you know, increments of $30 or $40, and each increment of that much will get you several thousand additional people seeing that post. And if a few of those share it, then it can really take off. So that's how I would recommend starting with Facebook, and it's super simple.
It also builds your follower base.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we sort of got stagnant around 500, and I was like, come on. And so we put a post up there and boosted the post, and all of a sudden we're at 750 or within a week. So, and it's cheap. It's like 50. I mean, for that, it's like $50. It doesn't cost a lot of money to do that.
And there is some way, I did this once in Facebook, but it made me feel a little bit sleazy. I just thought is that you can actually pay Facebook to like increase the number of likes of your page. And I swear there was some sort of, I mean, we did that once. It was like, it might have been a form of advertising rather than boosting, but it basically said, you know, what's your main goal? To increase the number of likes. And so then you just paid Facebook some money, and suddenly our likes just started going up. And I was like, there is somebody in Facebook just clicking like over and over. I didn't like that one as much, but having more likes, it creates its own momentum after a while. So
let's talk about the board's role in marketing. Having run an organization, a project at CNBC, I feel like that was always my biggest challenge, was the board wanting us to spend money on programming and not enough on fundraising and marketing. So how have you engaged your board in that, and how have you gotten them to invest in marketing? Because obviously your board is there.
When we found money, I mean, we applied for grants. Our major funder is Rose Community Foundation, and we have a great partnership with our program officers. I have 2 program officers there, and actually a third who sort of steps in occasionally. And they're really supportive, and they believe in and trust me as a marketing professional to sort of guide our marketing process. So when we realized that we weren't getting as much as we wanted to, we went and we strategized how to do that. We have grants specifically to help us recruit volunteers and do outreach. And so we have a bunch of money just specifically for that. Not just from Rose, but from other funders too. So it's not like I was trying to find a dollar here or there within other budget lines where I was saving money. This was going out and specifically asking a funder to help us with this, help us recruit more volunteers.
I guess I would say that another form of marketing that I haven't talked about that our board really has helped us with is, one way we do market ourselves is that we're trying to rely, Chalkbeat, I say we, I'm not there anymore, I have to remember that, but less and less on foundation grants and more on earned revenue, which on a news website is basically selling ads, which we call sponsorships, so that the IRS doesn't come after us. And one of our board members who runs a tech company in New York kind of tried to prime the pump for us by actually buying paying for a major sponsorship of his product on all of the Chalkbeat websites. So then suddenly there was this tech company that had a product that it was trying to sell to school districts, an iPad-based literacy thing. And it actually worked because once that ad was up there for a while, other tech companies saw that and went, oh, well, we better be there too. And so we actually got 2 or 3 other similar companies, competitors to Light Sales, the name of his company, to do that. So that's one way a board member really helped us in terms of marketing. But also, I think, again, board members, if you have the right people on your board who are well connected in the community and have a lot of contacts and are good at doing outreach, just for people to know that they're on your board gives you a lot of credibility, and they can do a lot of word of mouth, spreading the word about your organization.
One thing when you start doing stuff like what Alan was saying, you start advertising wherever it is. So if you decide you're going to run radio ads, or if you're going to run TV ads, you're going to start getting calls from other radio stations and other TV stations trying to convince you to advertise on their station. So you just need to be prepared that they all pay attention to what everybody else is doing. They're all mining each other's data. Yeah. And it's kind of like, if you get a promotion and your picture runs in the Denver Business Journal or somewhere, and then all of a sudden you're getting solicitations from, wealth managers and life insurance companies and car dealerships. It's sort of the same thing. So you just gotta be prepared for your time to be spent saying, no, we've already spent our money, thank you, no.
On a personal level, I had that happen to me as soon as I, started my own little company, and I just registered as an LLC with the Secretary of State. Suddenly, I have a whole new ream of junk mail I get from the company. It's like, really? I don't want any of this. There is a lot of data mining.
So Alan, you talked about the number of organizations that are just doing these blanket press releases, and I don't know why in the nonprofit sector that ever became such a popular thing to do, but I hear that everywhere I go. Well, write a press release, send a press release. What are other things that you're seeing in the nonprofit sector that you just think are not a good marketing practice, or that you would encourage people to stay away from?
That's definitely the number one practice that I think is a no-no. The other is I think that some people do use social media, and obviously I'm being facetious about age, but I do think that there is a certain correlation between people having a natural inclination to knowing how to use social media and sort of whether they're digital natives or not. Using social media like Facebook or Twitter the wrong way is probably counterproductive as opposed to neutral. So people, and I'll be the first to admit I don't really get, especially Twitter, how to use it effectively, but a couple of the young reporters at Chalkbeat here in Denver are really good at it. And we're covering a meeting. Now the chair says we'll adjourn in 10 minutes, hashtag yawn, it's like nobody's gonna read that. So the tweets have to be lively and engaging and actually contain new information. The other thing is if you're trying to promote something on Twitter or Facebook, you don't just do it once, right? So you come back around with a slightly different angle into the same message, maybe multiple times a day. Same thing with Facebook. You do one post for us, it was about stories, and then you might come back a couple of hours later or several hours later and say, ask a question or even do a poll, right? You can do all of those things. So using social media intelligently can be a real boost, but using it the wrong way, I think, is actually, if you don't know what you're doing, it's better not to do anything than to just dive in.
And with so many employees, how did you coordinate all of that? Like, did you have one person who was kind of creating the overall message and kind of telling people what to do, or was there only one person doing it? Or it just seems like it's, especially going back, how do you coordinate all that?
we did develop a team we call the product team that sort of specializes in getting out social media stuff. But we also, each bureau, so we have offices in here and in New York and in Memphis and in Indianapolis. And we basically had one person generally responsible for doing most of the social media in each one of those bureaus who liked it and got how to do it the right way. I think the guy we have doing it here is probably the best we have in the entire network, because he's just, I mean, if you look at his own personal Instagram and Twitter and stuff, he's just like constantly, it's like he lives his life on social media, and he's 28. So that's just, it really is a different thing for some, I think, for some people who just like to live their life very publicly, and he's one of those people. So it seamlessly transfers to the professional realm.
It is important, I think, though, that you have to ensure control over the messaging, that you don't have everybody have access to administer your Facebook page or anything that you do. There should be one person, whether it's you or you have a chief marketing person or whoever it is, that's sort of the arbiter of what the message is, and everything goes through that person, sort of like a siphon. I mean, it comes up through them and it comes down through them, because otherwise you're going to lose control of your messaging and how it's being conveyed and all of that. And so that's why it's important for one person.
I think that's true, and I think this may be a media-specific thing, but it may not be, I'm not sure. But all of the conferences that all of us have gone to about social media and the media says that all of your reporters in a media organization should have their own personal Twitter accounts, but there should also be an official Twitter account, and they're used very differently. So the official one would go along exactly the lines of what Barbara said, but then they actually encourage all the individuals, and this may work in other organizations too, to have their own Twitter accounts and for their own personality to come through in that as they're also promoting the organization. I mean, so you don't want people in their own personal, Twitter account to say, man, I just got wasted last night, and here's a picture of me lying passed out on my couch. Obviously that wouldn't be really good for the organization, but if people are using it more so people get to know them and see them as real people, that can really help your organization.
And Barbara, did you have anything to add to the conversation about things that you have seen that are not successful that you would encourage people to stay away from?
Let's see, I did write some stuff down. Let's see here. So under sort of lessons learned kind of thing. So what I had thought about was that the example I said before, that things aren't always as they say. So something that looks like it's a huge success, but may have some unintended consequences, like not enough of a conversion rate in terms of volunteers, that's something that you need to be mindful of. I also think that one of the lessons learned is that you should cultivate your own success stories, a library of success stories, hopefully with photographs that will tell your story. Because I can tell you by far that the intro that Angela read about who we are and what we do, it's like, that's our sort of elevator speech. It's super boring. But if I told you what our volunteers did and the impact that they made, that, they helped a guy who thought he was going blind, get to an eye doctor, and it turns out he just had cataracts, and then they got a bike for him to ride. And so the 70-year-old man who thought he was going to go blind and never see again and not be able to go anywhere, all of a sudden can see better than he ever could before, and now he's got transportation. That's what one volunteer did for one guy. That's a lot better than saying, well, we mobilize.
Right.
So that's one thing. I would also tell you that publicizing what you're doing in terms of marketing is also another way to sort of market yourself. So when we're going to be on television, we tell our people in our e-newsletter, look for us on CBS 4. CBS 4 likes that too. But we also tell our board, and we also tell our funders. So when we get a story, if someone sends us a picture of these two immigrants from Burma, and they're smiling because they just got their teeth fixed, and that's the first thing I do is I send it to my board and my stakeholders, and that story is out there so that people who invest in us feel really good about us. I would also say from a creative standpoint and a messaging standpoint, because that's sort of the side of marketing I came from. I was a copywriter and a broadcast producer. I think a really good, effective headline, if you're putting anything out there, is to ask a question, frame it in the form of a question that enables your audience to put themselves in the situation. Are you thinking about retirement? Are you wondering what your what's next is going to look like? Are you worried about that immediately enables them to connect with what your next message is gonna be, and they'll go with you from there. And then the other thing that actually Alex didn't mention, but it's a rule, figure out your homepage of your website. You want your donate button, you want people to be able to donate within one click. And do you want your donate now button to be in the upper right-hand corner of your site and be prominent? Now, if you go on our site, which is blcih.org, there's not really a donate now button because that's not really how we raise money. If we get to the point where we do raise money that way with individual donations, it will be there. But for the other websites I've worked on where they were fundraising organizations, top right corner, very prominent, one click to your donation page. And they should get, once they donate, they should get an immediate recognition, thank you for your donation, from the site, as well as an email thanking them with all the information that they provided. That's just rule number one for nonprofits if you're trying to raise money off your website. And that was something that we covered. I thought you guys should know that.
I just don't want to forget to say this before the end of the day, because in the work I'm doing now, one organization I'm working with, it, I won't name, has this problem. If you're going to do a website, make sure that you have control of your own website. And what I mean by that is, don't hire one of these companies that build something custom and then every time you want to change anything, you have to call and pay them $150 an hour or whatever it is, right? Have control of your, now there may be some things you have to, that are like deep inside the code that you need to have somebody help you with, but just do something like WordPress and have somebody build you a website and then train you so you have complete control over how you move the content around, what content is where, when it changes, because otherwise you get yourself into this, I mean, it's what some more unscrupulous companies out there love, which is build something custom and then keep the customer addicted. And the problem is that a lot of times their response to people who are already good, and as a result, you just get so frustrated and you can't update. So just do some. There's great off-the-shelf stuff. Chalkbeat, which is now a pretty big outfit, uses WordPress, which is like the standard. Use WordPress, it's great, or Drupal, or there are a few others that are just completely off-the-shelf standard, can be highly customized, but you can control all of it. And that's so, I mean, I can't emphasize how important that is.
Are there any other final tips that you would give before we open it up for some final questions from everybody else?
Well, what I like to say to people is marketing isn't everything, but everything is marketing. Everything you do, everywhere you go, wherever your logo appears, if you're doing if you're up here at a panel someday and you're talking about what you do, anytime you're networking or anyone affiliated with your nonprofit is doing it, that's marketing. It has an impact on your brand. It's a reflection of your brand. It's a reflection of what you do. And hopefully I'm not screwing our brand up today. But it's just be mindful of that. And I think that's part of what Alex was saying is, like negative social media is going to do more harm than positive social media. It's the same thing in the analog age. When you're out in public, same thing. So that's my kind of motto. Marketing isn't everything, but everything is marketing.
And a corollary to that is everyone in your organization is part of the marketing team. They have to be, they should be. Somebody else leads it. That may not be their main job description, but they're part of the organization. They should all, with every opportunity, be promoting it in any way they can.
One other thing I would like to say is sometimes you'll get negative feedback. But don't let that define or drive who you are, what you do, because it may just be one person. It may just be that one person's impression. And whether it's about your marketing or anything else. And I would say, if it's someone comment and then it starts to be a pattern, that's one thing. But if somebody just, is like an outlier, I wouldn't necessarily follow that person like, you need to redirect everything based on their feedback.
And I'll add one last thing, because from that same communications guy who had the sort of who's your audience is the first thing. And this is more communications than marketing, but one of the things he said that I just loved, I'll always remember this, I'll steal it shamelessly, which is 99% of the time, 99 times out of 100, if somebody comes with you and wants to, and the media comes to you and asks a question or whatever, 99 times out of 100, you should tell the truth. And the other 1% of the time, you need a lawyer.
That's good, I like that. Any other final questions? We have a few minutes left.
I just have a comment about what you said about somebody finding the advertising or the piece in the paper and then coming to you. Probably 12 years ago, Buzz in the Burbs, which is a local newspaper out southeast Centennial area and a little bit further, maybe Parker, she donated a rocking chair to me. I don't know how she found me. It was too long ago. But she was the editor of this paper. And she says, oh, when I have space, I'll just throw in a little thing that you're looking for rockers. And I said, that's great. So I still have people call me. They go, and it's little. It's like this big. I found this little piece of paper in my junk drawer about a rocking chair, and we're ready to get rid of our rocking chair. She goes, are you still doing this? So, I mean, it's that long ago. So just those little tiny blurbs sometimes catch people's eye, even though it wasn't a big article. And, it's just amazing. You can get it anywhere.
That's great.
I think there's a bigger message in that too, which is probably mostly in my journalism experience I saw this, but everything you do matters because you may think you're putting something out there that you think is gonna make a huge splash and it'll just sink like a stone and nobody will do anything. And then something you just kind of throw out there as a throwaway will have that kind of an impact. So never, ever assume that, never do anything half-assed, I guess is the best way to put it, but you never know what's gonna wind up generating.
And one other marketing thing that we've done, because I am my organization, is that I have to rely on my friends and family and donors and people that find out about us over all these years. Is one thing that we do to market, since we are pretty small, is that we have these get-togethers and at people's homes, and they just invite their friends in, and I give them a little spiel, and then we do whatever they were going to do before that. So it's either have a dinner or a barbecue or some kind of crafty thing at their house, and they just give me like 10, 15 minutes to share my organization with them, and then they go out, and that's where I get a lot of new people. So for a small organization, that's really, well, and we used to do that when I worked for Girl Scouts too. So big organization, small organization.
That's great, thank you. Any other final questions? Yes?
Ellen, could you spell the name of your organization? Is that an acronym or a word?
My organization's now is, you mean Chalkbeat? Or
Yes.
my current organization?
Yeah, what is it?
Chalkbeat it's like chalk that you write on a blackboard with and beat, like a newspaper beat. Chalkbeat.org. And the Colorado one is co.chalkbeat.org.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Alan and Barbara, for being here today. It was incredibly helpful. I really appreciate it. And let's give them a round. We have a small gift here. Thank you for volunteering your time today.
Thank you.